Hello, welcome back to Chasing Labels, and welcome back to another Criterion Collection Blu-ray review. This time we're in the month of August, and this is an interesting month. This was I remember when this month got announced, it took everybody by surprise because it was like almost all documentary. That's not something you see a lot. A lot of documentary stuff.
It's kind of the documentary month plus a re-release of a previous release, previous release. You know what I'm saying? And a brand new title and another brand new title, but also happened to be a documentary. It's an interesting kind of month. And maybe it's the calm after the storm of the bigger months that were June and July.
Sure.
And yeah, it's a surprising month, but I think an enriching month if you really dig deep and if you really like documentaries. This month is for you. So I don't know how you feel about documentaries, Steven, but I find myself very engrossed in them. You know, subject matter depending, of course.
Yeah. I was gonna say it depends on what we're talking about, and sometimes people. I don't think people always think about the filmmaking aspect of a documentary. They think people just go in and shoot a bunch of shit and then put it. I think first and foremost, editing is very important in a documentary. Taking all that footage that and it's hundreds of hours of footage, and whittling it down to like a couple hours, and making some sort of thing that makes sense, make a story, a through line with a character, whatever it is, makes sense, is a skill. And there's usually no script, so it's very much being made in the editing room. And so I think I don't know about what the documentaries you got, because I haven't seen them, right. But the one I have here that I will be reviewing, talking about tonight, and I know you've seen it, Harlan County, USA, which is a re-release. This is Spine number 334, but this is now getting upgraded to 4K. And, initially going in, I was wondering, like, do we really need a 4K upgrade of a documentary from the 70s? And it looks, and I'm like, yeah, we do, because it looks great.
We do. Yeah, it's interesting because that release has been around, like you said, it's been around for a very long time. Yeah. Being in the 300s, we're now what? They're over
about 1,000 titles ahead of that.
Yeah, they're like way ahead of that now, and that's been available on DVD, on Blu-ray, and now in 4K. It's interesting how my release, the one that I got, is something that's actually brand new, a new addition to the collection, and that is the Eclipse series, number 49, which is the Kazuhara and Sachiko Kobayashi, the five radical documentaries by these two directors here. And this is a new release from them, part of this big revival push they're doing with the Eclipse series sub-label, I guess you would call it now in the modern days of collecting, from Criterion. And there are 5 documentaries in here. They range from the 1970s all the way up to 2016, which is a heck of a jump in time. We got two from the 70s, two from the one from the 80s, one from the 90s, and one from 2016, and they are all radically different, hence the title, Radical Documentaries. But we will be getting into, I don't know which ones we want to start with first. Do we want to start with Eclipse? Because I don't know about the Eclipse.
Let's do that, because I don't have anything really to say about these. There's going to be a lot of you here, but let's run it down as quickly as we can.
Yeah, there's a lot to say. And before we get into that, there are other releases that are coming out this month. One that's already come out is Todd Haynes' film Safe is getting a 4K UHD re-release. I have the old Blu-ray here that came out way back in 2014. So this came out 12 years ago. So there's now a 4K release of this movie. This is a great film starring Julianne Moore, where she particularly plays a hypochondriac who is feeling just this sense of illness, unsafe, unhinged, and she's really scared of everything in life. And the whole movie, I think, is a metaphor for the AIDS crisis that, of course, happened and was occurred in the 1980s, spilling over into the 1990s. So this movie is all a metaphor for that. Obviously, Todd Haynes being part of the LGBTQ plus community, he and probably witnessed a lot of that firsthand amongst his peers. So that's the movie Safe. If you have not seen that movie or his other movies, highly recommend Todd Haynes' work. And then we have a couple of other films here. Coup de Torchon, which is a French film directed by Bertrand Tavernier, and this is a kind of like a neo noir, if you will. And then we've got, of course, this Eclipse series set, Little Odessa, which is a movie by James Gray, a director I think many people are kind of aware of. He do We Own the Night at Astra.
Mhm.
That's James Gray. Um,
I'm really hoping for that to get some kind of release because I think that's a little bit of an underrated kind of crime drama with
yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix, Robert Duvall.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, it's pretty solid. It's very well made, I think, and well acted. So
I have
is
it
the story. The
somewhere.
story's a little on the cliche side, but it's just made up for by great performances and stuff. So
Thought I had. I don't know. Maybe I do have it in my collection. I can't remember. What I don't have in my collection is another documentary by Barbara Koppel, who did do Harlan County, USA, which we will discuss. American Dream, which she did about a decade after Harlan County, USA, and it is a actually more than a decade. It came out in 1990, so like decade and a half, if you will. And that movie is a documentary about another workers' strike. This happened to be in Minnesota, in Austin, Minnesota, not Austin, Texas, Austin, Minnesota, where the workers at a meatpacking factory uh, dealing with, I think it was Hormel, yeah, Hormel Foods, who still exists to this day, a big meatpacking canned food type of company and whatnot. And there was a whole big strike in the 1980s that this documentary covers. And then, of course, Harlan County, USA. And then that is it for the month of August. But back to this here. This, like I said, is a revival, is part of the revival of the Eclipse series that Criterion had been doing for many, many, many years. And they stopped a few years ago. They went all the way from number 1 to number 46. So these were spine numbered, similar to, the regular spine numbering that they were doing with their DVDs, their Blu-rays, and now their 4Ks. I got several of these. For example, the first films of Samuel Fuller, which actually just got a Blu-ray re-release. Late Ozu, early Bergman. There were early films from Fassbender. There's post-war Kurosawa. There's a lot of excellent, excellent Eclipse series that unfortunately are now all out of print. Many of them are. I was fortunate enough to get the last one that they put out, and that is the Ingrid Bergman Swedish Years, and this was number 46. And I brought this out just to give people a sense of the packaging difference. As you can see here, they would typically put in. I'll just take one out. They would typically put in these thin packs, and just the DVDs. That was basically the DVDs. There was a booklet in there, and then that was it. Like I mentioned on Chasing Labels many a time, basically the Eclipse series was just a way in which to put a lot of movies that would not get any type of physical media release, give them a release, and kind of put them on disc for people to buy. And they kept them strictly on DVD, even though they started doing them. I think during when DVD was like the height or the big format before Blu-ray took over. Even when Blu-ray took over, they stayed with putting these movies on DVD just for affordability's sake and for cost's sake. DVDs are much cheaper to make than Blu-rays. That's just a matter of financial fact. 4Ks are also way more expensive to make as well. But these sets here, I know a lot of people would collect these right along with the regular Criterions. They line them up on their wall, one to however many. But a lot of the early ones, and most of them are now out of print, going for pretty big prices on places like eBay and other third-party sellers. And some of them, like I said, are getting the Blu-ray re-release. Some of the movies that were in some of the sets have already gotten released in other Criterion editions. For example, the early Bergman, which is is number 1, is Eclipse series number 1. All those movies got re-released in the big old Bergman set. The Agnes Varda in California, which I also happen to have here. These were all obviously re-released and put out in the big old Agnes Varda Blu-ray set. So as you can see, some of these have resurfaced in other better formats over the years. And now we are getting the new releases, like Lubitsch Musicals got re-released in Blu-ray, and we're also getting new titles and continuing the numbering with this set here. And what is different about this, as you just saw with the other older sets that were in the digipacks, or the thin packs rather, this is kind of a regular old thick a thick DVD case. Um, I don't know how people feel about this, but I don't mind it. It's functional. There's a booklet here, and then the discs are stacked like so, or overlapped, if you will. Now, these are kind of tough to get out. I don't know if anybody else has trouble with having to press down on these little buttons here and get things out. Like, even trying to do it here, actually, that was a lot easier. But, anywho, they're overstacked like this. The first disc has the first two movies, which are the Goodbye CP and Extreme Private Eros. And then the next one is the Emperor. Let me see. Probably should just read it off the back. The Emperor's Naked Army Marches On, and then we've got A Dedicated Life, and then we've got Senin Asbestos Disaster. Now, I got to see about 4 out of 5 of these. The reason being I'm not seeing the last one is it's over 200 minutes long. It is an absurdly long documentary. And it is officially, let's see, 214 minutes long. So that's like 3.5 hours or so. And these other documentaries in here, Goodbye CP, the first one done in 1972, is one that's actually about the fight for the rights of those with disabilities in Japan. These are all Japanese films. They're all in Japanese with English subtitles, and they are all movies and documentaries about Japanese people, Japanese culture in some way, the fight for certain rights, or the exploration of certain political things and whatnot. There's a lot going on in these documentaries, typically tied to Japanese society of the time. And the first one here, like I said, Goodbye CP, is a documentary about the rights of disabled people in Japan in the 1970s, or lack thereof, rather. And I know there's been documentaries here in the United States about those fighting for rights for those with disabilities as well. I know there was a great documentary a few years ago that was nominated for all kinds of awards that was about the fight to get the American Disabilities Act passed way back when, back in the early 90s, which did get passed under the first George H.W. Bush, the father of George W. Bush, was passed back then. But this documentary, Goodbye CP, is really fascinating because, like I said, the political ties to it all and the social ties to it all, and the way in which these two directors, Kazuo Hara and Sachiko Kobayashi, shoot documentaries. It's not what we typically know documentary. It's not a talking heads. It's not really interviews per se. It's a lot of raw and insightful material that's basically telling a story just on its own, or telling or showing us rather all on its own. Like, you just see people with disabilities in this documentary just kind of walking around, and we're just watching them with the camera as if we're there, seeing them go about their day-to-day struggles and day-to-day lives. It's really fascinating how raw and intimate his documentaries can be. Extreme Private Eros, a love song from 1974, is a fascinating documentary because it's it's about it's really about a man who was uh, he's dealing with the aftermath of a divorce, and it's dealing with all of those emotions about, like, his wife leaving him, and all of the kind of emotions that go with that, and also moving on with your life and and having a relationship with a new partner, and really exploring all of those intimacies and all of those interesting aspects of life. Very kind of universal in that uh, exploration. There's a scene in this movie that is I think, a full on birth scene, as close up and as intimate as one could possibly be, as if we are literally in there. These directors do not care at all about invasive filmmaking, like right up there in there. There is a scene in A Dedicated Life that where somebody's having a part of his liver removed because it's cancerous, and they're showing the procedure like you would see on those late night, like, medical programs or whatever. Like, this guy's entire body is opened up, and we see them literally lift this man's liver out of his body. And I'm like, how did they get the permission to shoot this footage? It is insanely invasive. Bold filmmaking here, bold filmmaking. But The Emperor's Naked Army Marches On is probably the most political one in here. It's about this man who is this political advocate who is exploring and trying to expose war crimes that happened during World War II in New Guinea, war crimes within the Japanese army that they inflicted on themselves. And it's as about as political as you can get. It is very interesting how eye-opening that is, and how it is dealing with past wounds and past political things that people really don't want to explore anymore. They want to move on with their life. This is now post-war Japan. Fascinating documentary, really politically charged in every way. And then, like I said, A Dedicated Life is the fourth one, and it is the one that is incredibly intimate as well. It's about an author, Mitsuharu Inoue, and it's about not only his life and career, but also the fact that he's actually dying of cancer. In this movie depicts the last 4 years or so of his life. And it's about him, like I said, going through various medical procedures, having to deal with all of that, and having to take an assessment of his life. So you get interviews with a lot of students that he worked with in the past, and literary colleagues and things like that. He was mostly a writer of poems and short stories and novels and things like that. But you get kind of an invasive look at his life, and also you get a look at how he's embellished a lot of his life as well to make himself kind of look better, and leave a more lasting legacy. It's a very fascinating documentary. Then the last movie is the one that he made in 2016, which, like I said, is a 3.5-hour documentary called Senin Asbestos Disaster. And this documentary they made over 10 years. And it is actually, once again, dealing with something that's not unfamiliar to us. Workers basically fighting for their rights after the fact of them being exposed to asbestos and all of the harsh chemical reactions and sickness and illness that involves in, and them trying to fight for some type of justice because of all of that. It's the classic, and this is probably a good segue into Harlan County, USA, workers' rights, and corporations taking advantage of workers, treating them poorly, putting them in harmful situations, probably knowingly, but not caring because they're making money off of it. I mean, all of those things are involved in this world, in these types of documentaries. So there's a lot to digest in all of this. They're all, like I said, now available on Blu-ray versus DVD. So they all look pretty good. They are all available also to stream on the Criterion channel. That's where I saw a lot of them in preparation for when I talked about them on Chasing Labels. But unfortunately, there are not any special features on this release, and there's pretty much never been any special features on any of the Eclipse series, because it was to keep the budget and the cost of those lower so that the price would be lower for us, collectors and consumers and cinephiles in general. But this said here, I think just the wealth of stuff you get from just the documentaries themselves is worth it, without the special features. So yeah, really great comprehensive look at these directors and these movies that I had never heard of until I watched them for not only Chasing Labels, but for this as well. But Harlan County, USA is probably way more well known than these.
Yeah, I'm a little upset we don't have a commentary for that liver removal scene.
Yeah. It was quite harrowing. It was quite harrowing. I'm watching it and I'm like, this is invasive. I don't know how they got the camera in here, because this documentary was probably made in the late 80s and, came out in 1994, if you will. It was 2 years after this author had passed away in 1992. So to get a video camera in an operating room in the late 80s seems like logistically difficult to do. I know we had video cameras back then and whatnot, but they still weren't the most, high tech things to do or the most easy thing to do, especially for a documentary film. I'm curious what type of footage didn't make it into these documentaries. Those would have been fascinating extra features to be put on here. But yeah, these are just amazing, intimate documentaries in a style of which we don't really get a lot of. Most documentaries I think we watch now are the traditional, show some footage, interview some experts and some people, they explain things to us or give us some cool stories or insights, and then we move on to another subject. These are just raw, very cinema verite style in all of their forms, almost formless, if you will. I very very pleasantly surprised by just the how great these are. I mean, there is an essay in here. I probably should have mentioned that, but other than that, like I said, no features or anything like that. But Harlan County, USA, is a more traditional release from Criterion, and it's got some features, and it's got um, a lot to say about workers' rights.
For sure. This was the first time I'd seen this film. And once I started watching it, I was like, dude, this subject matter is right up my alley. As somebody that is I would consider myself a blue collar worker, that does a job that is very underappreciated, which is services, large grocery stores. Um, it's, to see these men who do this very dangerous job and get into their lives, and then see how much they are being taken advantage of and not cared for, and seeing people like stand up to them is inspirational. It's, there's a lot of tragic stuff in here. It's a lot of stuff that just makes you angry, and I'll say the one thing that hit me the most about this film was how cinematic it really is. Like the way that, and that's why I was talking about editing at the beginning. Like the way this film's edited, it feels like it's just like a drama. Like it doesn't even always feel like it's a documentary, because it doesn't have always that standard style you're talking about where you got somebody sitting down and you're interviewing him. Yeah, that's in there. But there's chunks of this movie where it's like you're floating between characters and you're following different stories without breaking, and it's just amazing, and the footage you get, and it looks great. Like the 4K, it really does make you feel like you're more in, like it looks so good. It's such a good looking documentary. Yeah, I mean, you get an interview in here. I believe all these features are from the previous disc. And you get an interview, I believe, with the cinematographer in here. And then, of course, John Sayles does a interview on here talking, because it very much, I think, influenced his Match 1 film. And he talks about it, too, the same way. Like, it just feels like it's a drama, the way the story told in this documentary. But I loved it, man. It just... And like one of my favorite scenes, I loved when you get like they're like in like the city, and you get the two dudes, the cop and the guy talking, and apparently is based off the behind the scenes, they don't know that they're mic'd, so they're just having a conversation without anybody knowing that they're being recorded, and it's just, you could tell that people just want everybody to be. They care. People care. Even the cop cares, who's got to be there making sure everything goes well. It's a great documentary. It's one of the best ones I've seen.
Yeah, it's very, like you said, blue collar, but also it's very rural documentary. It's about essentially like small town. It's not even the Midwest, because it's Harlan County, Kentucky,
Yeah.
which I'm not sure geographically where it is, but it is essentially coal mining country, if you will. That kind of area of like West Virginia, Kentucky border,
Yeah, I was gonna say
that
it's
stuff
it's a little bit northwest of me in North Carolina.
Yeah, that's all like coal mining country. And coal mining, for those of you who are not aware, is one of the most like dangerous, uh, dirtiest, and most unhealthy jobs you could possibly have. I mean, a lot of people do develop a lot of bad medical conditions, lung cancer, and a lot of lung issues because of being underground, consuming all of that dust and dirt and debris. Takes a toll after a while, and it wouldn't be until people suffered a lot of these consequences that people would be aware of them, if you will. And this movie is dealing with a lot of like workers' rights, but of course wages and things like that, because these are like hard working jobs that people need to survive. And we're well aware of the economic issues that go on in this country constantly. I mean, if you've been around for the last 25, 30, 40, 50 years, you understand the ebbs and flows of the economy and all that kind of stuff and living conditions and all of that kind of stuff. Not to be too political, but it goes up and down like a roller coaster ride. I mean, back in the 70s, a lot of the issues they were dealing with when it comes to rising costs is similar issues to what we're dealing with now. There was a gas issue economically going back in the 70s as well. There's a gas issue with gas prices now. I mean, it's all cyclical. It's all cyclical. But this Harlan County, USA is considered one of like the most well-known and best documentaries ever. I see it once again on all kinds of best documentaries of all time lists. It's right up there with Hoop Dreams, a lot of the other Criterion documentaries like For All Mankind, The Thin Blue Line. I mean, it's always on those lists of one of the best ever. And Barbara Koppel would, of course, then go on to do that other documentary that they released as well, dealing similarly to workers' rights, wages, and also what I love about this documentary and that documentary, as well as John Sayles' film Matewan, it's really dealing with the humanity of it all. Like these people really depend highly on the work and the wages and all of that to survive. So they are affected greatly by having to go on like worker strikes and having to rely on unions to keep them financially solvent so their families can survive. It is a harrowing type of situation that they don't want to do, but they kind of have to do to make change happen.
And what I love too is that you see how much important it is to do what they're doing, is because it's not just the men, but the wives, the women coming in to like get involved. And some of the women are the most important members of this strike, that are coming in and having these loud voices to say, look, we see our husbands doing this work and they don't do it because they like it. They do it because they have to. They have to do it. It's the only means to make money.
Yeah.
And the little money that they're making.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I don't know. There's a lot just sociologically to talk about, in the sense that like people who live in these smaller communities, once they kind of are I want to say stuck in these types of jobs, but they are. These are the only jobs available to them, so therefore they have to do them. Because they don't have the means to move to like a larger city, a larger town.
Because you
seek
can't,
bigger opportunities.
People might say just leave, and you're like, well, I can't. What if I have what if I already have a sprouting family? It takes money to move to another place, and sometimes you move to another place, it's more expensive. It's like you can't just pack up and leave places.
And a lot of people, in those small types of towns, their families have been here for generations. Like their families have been here since the founding of some of these towns and these small cities. They've been here for generation after generation after generation. So this is all they know, and this is all they have. I mean, it's a lot of, like I said, a lot of culture goes into this, and so you get a lot of that intimacy within the Harlan County, USA documentary. But a couple of the other special features that are on this release. Does have a 4K digital restoration. Like Steven said, it does look very good. It is supervised by Barbara Koppel. Yeah. Let's see. There's an audio commentary with Barbara Koppel and the editor Nancy Baker. There's the making of documentary, which is probably really cool.
It's great.
Outtakes from the film, which is interesting. Interview with bluegrass singer-songwriter Hazel Dickens. Interview with filmmaker John Sayles, which Steven mentioned. There's a panel discussion from Sundance Film Festival from 2005 featuring Barbara Koppel and Roger Ebert.
Yep.
That's fascinating. And there's an essay in there as well. So yeah, I think this is kind of like, if you want a good documentary and and you're a Criterion collection aficionado, this is one I think you almost have to have for your collection. Unfortunately, when it comes to my release, like I said, there are no special features. There's not even any real details about the restoration, or if there even was any type of restoration for those films, which I have no idea if there were or not. All I can say is they definitely look better than they would look on DVD, or probably look better than they've looked in the past. That's my assumption. I can definitely tell that they looked better than when I watched them streaming on the on Criterion channel as well. But yeah, oh yeah, I did want to see how they were. So it's a 4K and Blu-ray disc,
Yes.
and it looks like a booklet as well. Is it one of those fold-out booklets, or does it have actual pages?
Let's see. I think it's a book. Yep,
Okay,
it's got a spine.
nice. Okay,
So yeah, it's a really great documentary. And this stuff. I mean, like I don't live in an area quite as rural as this, but I do live in the country, so we have these places in our state, and I can relate to the idea of, um, wanting to feel like that the work you do, the job you work for, it is like supporting you, and is it not like just against you. And the other thing is the people that they're going against is Duke Power, which of course is like the energy giant of a lot of America. I mean, like, I don't know about you up there. Do you have Duke Power?
I don't think we do. No.
No, we have Duke Power all down here in the South. So
So they own kind of the monopoly of the power system. I guess.
Yeah, they're very much, ingrained in all around here, and so just seeing that's who the company that they were fighting against was. I was, oh shit, I was just talking about how much I hate Duke Power the other day. They still suck.
Yeah, their prices keep going up. I bet. I mean,
yeah, no, dude, I just had a power bill that's almost $300 for a month.
Yeah. That's very interesting. I mean, I mentioned the other Barbara Koppel documentary where they're fighting, Hormel Foods, and I'm like, I know Hormel Foods. They make all kinds of canned goods and whatnot.
Yeah, I think I got some of their beans upstairs.
Yeah, they make like chili, from what I remember.
Chili beans, yeah.
Yeah, American Dream, which is what an interesting oxymoron of a title. American Dream is the other documentary, and yeah, it's so interesting how like she was making this documentary in the 1970s, made another one that came out in 1990, and there are other documentaries that are made today about workers' rights and the strive for unionization, because we need unions, because if not, the corporations will do whatever they want. They'll lower wages, they'll lower benefits. I mean, and then there's nobody there to stop them. I mean, it's kind of reasoning. There's well-meaned reasoning why these things have to exist and why this fight kind of continues to go on. The cost of living keeps changing, but the corporations don't want to, come with the times. I mean, there's still battles over things like minimum wage and living wages and costs for all kinds of things. I mean, these documentaries kind of endure over time, which is both good and bad. I mean, you would think things would change by this point. This documentary came out over 50 years ago. You would think there would be some type of change between then and now, but really not so much. It's fascinating stuff. Really, really fascinating. I mean, even just going back to these documentaries here, the fight for, disabilities, for people with disabilities, is ever ongoing. I mean, I was thinking earlier about the time, growing up before the American with Disabilities Act was passed, and then of course all the changes were enacted. I remember there being so many, changes, physical changes going on. Every time you see a ramp that is in front of a building that wasn't there before, that's because of that. Anytime you see those handicap entrance doors to places, the ones when you press the button and they slowly open, that's because of American Disability Acts. You know what I mean? It's all kinds of accessibilities. Elevators in buildings is because that political action was taken and things had to change. I mean, and there are still places now that have never updated their codes and whatnot, be it to amend to all of that. And it's just kind of fascinating how slow change can be, over time. But yeah, I mean, these are two pretty good releases. I mean, all the releases this month I think are really, really good. When it comes to, if you're a documentary aficionado, I mean, if you don't like documentaries, and this, you may want to move along to the next month, if you will.
You could call this that this month isn't as sexy as most other months, but I mean, I think that this is a part of film that I feel like gets neglected on physical media a lot, because people kind of take them for granted. They watch their documentaries a lot of times just through streaming. Netflix overwhelms you with so many documentaries.
Yeah, documentaries and it's typically docu-series have
Yeah.
have gone up in popularity over the last few years. I know true crime is a lot
Yeah.
is a lot bigger now than it was before. I mean, there are a lot of documentaries maybe featured as extra features on Blu-rays and DVDs. That's where I saw a lot of them.
Yeah.
I remember when I bought Apocalypse Now. Hearts of Darkness was a
Yeah.
special feature that was on a separate disc that they just gave you when you bought it. Now you can buy that separately. And so I think times have changed a bit. But yeah, that is it for I don't think we have anything else to say for the Criterion editions for the month of August of 2026. Check them out. You can get them, of course, on the Criterion.com website. Get them on at other online retailers like Orbit DVD, as well as Odyssey Movies, Diabolic DVD, or you can wait to the 50% off Barnes and Noble sale, which will be happening in November. I know the July one just wrapped up, and yeah, that's about it.
All right, guys. We will see you around on Chasing Labels, and we'll see you next month for some more Criterion reviews. Goodbye and good night.